Bonjour à tous, nous sommes ici avec P.D. Lawton et aussi Monsieur Sébastien Perimony. Il est un ami de le Schiller Institute et aussi il a travaillé beaucoup avec une organisation politique qui s'appelle Solidarité et progrès à Paris en France. Alors, bonjour Sébastien, bienvenue.
Bonjour.
Bonjour,
Merci,
Sébastien.
bonjour.
To all our English listeners out there, I'm here today with Madam P.D. Lawton and Mr. Sébastien Perimony, who is a friend of the Schiller Institute in Germany, and he's also worked a lot with the Solidarité et progrès movement in France. Sebastien has just recently also taken a trip to Mali, where he has been working on some political developments there, which are very interesting and we're going to hear more about later. So first, I'm going to leave the floor to P.D. Lawton. She's going to introduce us to some of Sebastian's books, which I would encourage everybody to go out and buy because they are fabulous. So, prends la parole, P.D. Lawton.
Merci bien. Merci, oui. Donc, le livre « Voir l'Afrique avec les yeux du futur ». Et, ah bon, il y a des agences spatiales en Afrique, mais pour quoi faire? Et bientôt des centrales nucléaires, vous êtes sûr? Oui, l'industrialisation de l'Afrique a déjà commencé. Oui, un nouveau paradigme émerge. C'est lui qui fut tant rêvé par les grands leaders panafricanistes. Il est celui d'un monde multipolaire basé sur le co-développement, d'un monde basé sur l'économie physique, face au monétarisme et au malthusianisme. Vous serez sûrement très surpris en découvrant ce livre. So, Monsieur Perimony, this is a fantastic introduction to an extraordinary change that is happening in Africa. And we are incredibly privileged to be able to witness it in our lifetimes. You have recorded history in this book. It's something I suggest everyone goes out and gets a copy because this is recording a change in the history of humanity and the change of Africa. It's a wonderful seminal book. And there is a beautiful preface by a Congolese Pan-African Diogen Henderseni, a most interesting and fascinating book that unfortunately will be news to far too many people. So thank you so much for writing this. And I think Nick has some questions to pose to you.
Absolument. Alors, juste pour notre audience, on va faire l'entrevue aujourd'hui dans les deux langues. On va essayer. Alors, oui, français et anglais. Alors, je vais commencer avec la première question pour Sébastien. Sebastian, how much are people in Africa aware or exposed to the ideas of Alexander Hamilton in general? Et pour les Français, dans quelle mesure les Africains sont-ils conscients ou exposés aux idées d'Alexander Hamilton en général? Merci, Sébastien.
Alors déjà, bonjour à tous. Hello to everyone. Je suis très content d'être avec vous. Merci de l'invitation et de l'introduction. Donc déjà, je commencerai, avant de répondre à la question, simplement en effet, oui, je suis membre de l'Institut Schiller, je suis membre du bureau Afrique. So I'm a member of the Africa Desk of the Schiller Institute. Donc un institut international qui a depuis plus d'une trentaine d'années proposé un grand nombre de projets pour le développement de l'Afrique. So the Schiller Institute, you know, I've proposed for years, for now more than 30 years, projects for Africa. Donc, je travaille avec eux. Et pour commencer, je dirais que, en fait, j'ai passé 10 ans de ma vie à lire des livres sur comment l'oligarchie financière, l'impérialisme détruisait l'Afrique et les Africains. Et donc, j'ai fait un petit peu le tour de tout ça. Et donc, j'ai décidé d'écrire un livre qui parle de exactement l'inverse, c'est-à-dire de comment l'Afrique et les Africains vont aujourd'hui pouvoir détruire l'oligarchie et sortir justement de l'impérialisme par le développement économique. Et ça rejoint évidemment cette question hamiltonienne. Donc, first, I wanted to say to all the people here that I have spent 10 years of my life reading books about how the oligarchy, how the imperialists are destroying Africa and the Africans. So I have read everything almost. It never stops. So I decided to write a book about exactly the opposite. I mean, I wanted to write a book about how Africans and Africa will destroy oligarchy and imperialism by its own economical, infrastructural industrialization of their continents. That's the main point of my book. So as Philippa said, yes, the process of industrialization have already started in Africa. And that's, I think, the main objective that I had in my mind when I was writing this book. Donc, je disais, comme l'a dit Philippa à l'automne, en effet, l'industrialisation de l'Afrique a commencé et c'est un petit peu le centre de mon livre. Donc, pour revenir à cette question que vous avez posée, Nicolas, sur est-ce que les gens en Afrique sont conscients de justement la révolution hamiltonienne, ce que représente Hamilton, pas simplement dans l'histoire américaine, mais dans l'histoire mondiale. Je dirais que malheureusement, très peu de gens ont connaissance de qui est Alexander Hamilton. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai consacré le premier chapitre de mon livre, justement en rendant hommage à Monsieur Cédric Mbang Mesui, donc qui est un auteur africain, qui a écrit plusieurs livres, qui a travaillé aux États-Unis et qui travaille aujourd'hui à la Banque africaine de développement, et donc qui a consacré le premier bouquin sur la nécessité pour l'Afrique d'avoir une approche hamiltonienne. Donc c'est vraiment une révolution dans la pensée économique disons des économistes africains. So what I was saying for the English speaking is that I dedicate the first chapter of my book to an African economist who is working at the African Bank of Development, with Cédric Achille Mbang Mesui. You can see on the screen his book as Philippa is showing it. And for me, it's the first book dedicated to the importance of Alexander Hamilton as a universal thinker, as a universal economist, to break the rules of imperialism, Malthusianism, and Adam Smithism, if we can say that. I don't know if we say Adam Smithism, but I say it. Anyway, donc, why not? Yeah. So, voilà. Donc, je reprends.
There's an ism for everything else nowadays, so we might as well.
Yeah. So why not this one? Yes. So, donc, en français. Et donc, c'est très important parce que Cédric Mbang Mesui, parce que si vous imposez la pensée américaine ou même la pensée française d'un point de vue d'un Européen ou d'un Américain, on a tendance à vous reprocher de vouloir imposer vos conceptions. Donc là, ce qui est intéressant, c'est que c'est un Africain lui-même qui a découvert Alexander Hamilton et a compris les 3 points fondamentaux de sa politique économique. Donc, what I was saying is that it's very important because it's the first book of an African economist dedicated to Alexander Hamilton. And it's very different that if it is a French economist or an American economist or British economist who are coming to Africa and say, oh, you have to do like us, read Hamilton, do like that. So it's very important that it's a real discovery. And I had the occasion to meet Cédric Mbang Mesui in Ivory Coast when I was there 2 years ago. And we discussed a lot about that. And for him, it was a real discovery. And for him, it was a real discovery that make possible now to really make people understanding how we can industrialize Africa and how we will do that. Donc, ce que je disais en français, c'est que ce qui est très intéressant, c'est que pour lui, Cédric Achille Mbang-Mesui, c'est vraiment été une vraie découverte de découvrir Alexander Hamilton, puisque vous savez, même en France, si on ne rencontre pas des gens comme Lyndon LaRouche, moi c'est grâce à monsieur Lyndon LaRouche et à l'Institut Schiller que j'ai connu Alexander Hamilton. Par contre, quand j'ai appris l'économie en classe, j'ai tout de suite appris Adam Smith, j'ai tout de suite appris Ricardo, je les connaissais déjà. Mais je n'avais jamais entendu parler d'Alexander Hamilton. Donc, et à votre question, est-ce que beaucoup d'Africains connaissent Hamilton? J'ai répondu non. Mais je peux vous dire que 98% des Français ne connaissent pas non plus Alexander Hamilton et l'importance historique que ça a. Donc, d'où pourquoi aussi la France est retombée dans cette politique impérialiste de libre-échange, d'Adam Smith et de malthusianisme. Donc, what I was saying is that to answer the question of if a lot of people in Africa know about Alexander Hamilton, I was saying that also in France, most of the people have never heard about Alexander Hamilton, but everybody knows the invisible hand, the theory of Adam Smith, the theory of Ricardo. We all know about it because this is the economy today, but nobody knows about Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah, it's really a shocking issue, isn't it, with the education? I found it myself, like growing up in Britain, I always knew who Alexander Hamilton was, but could never ever get access to the words of Alexander Hamilton or the ideas, more important, the ideas which are immortal. And when you really, as an individual or even as a country, like when you come across an idea so profound and so universal, it really does set you free, like both physically and metaphysically, like it allows you to construct these ideas, these potentials in the world. And that's exactly what, you know, the African youth or any African today can take from it. Like it's, you were saying before, like what's so brilliant about Mbeng Mezui's and Cedric Aki, like the book that was written, is that it needs to come from someone with national identity. So it's important that for each and every nation around the world that you have a guide, so to speak, who can take those ideas forward by themselves, of themselves, and for themselves, because that is what independence is all about, right? Like we have to take on these ideas independently and, you know, create the greater good action that we wish to see both in our immediate areas and also in the greater part of our countries. So thank you. Like, let's move on to our next question. You say that the biggest problems for Africa are the ideas of Thomas Malthus and Adam Smith, who you just spoke about. So you said Smithism. Alors, qu'est-ce que tu penses? Est-ce que vous pouvez expliquer en plus détail qu'est-ce que tu penses avec cette, with this statement, what you mean exactly? Yes.
Bah, c'est très intéressant, c'est la citation que je fais dans mon livre. Je pense que je peux la redire ici. Hein.
Et aussi, Sébastien, je veux dire, si vous voulez lire un part de cet livre, prends la parole aussi parce que c'est très intéressant pour nous et notre audience d'écouter.
D'accord. Ben, je voulais lire ce passage, deux passages pour caractériser ce qui est Adam Smith et ce qui est Malthus. Une citation de Malthus hein, qui est dans son fameux livre, hein, donc qui dit plutôt que de recommander la pauvreté aux pauvres, nous devrions construire les rues plus étroites, loger plus de gens dans les maisons et aider au retour de la peste. Bon, je ne sais pas si tout le monde comprend, je vais avoir peut-être du mal à le traduire. Peut-être Philippa peut m'aider en page 20. The quote from Malthus, maybe Philippa can translate it in English.
Est-ce que c'est possible, Madame Pidi?
Pardon, oui.
Oui.
Non, non.
Page,
Un petit
page 20,
Page 20, oui, bien sûr.
the quote of Malthus.
Oui. Je cherche, attends.
C'est quoi le code?
Oui. La théorie malthusienne.
Yes.
Formula l'origine.
No, just the quote at the bottom of it.
Enfin.
Oui, plutôt que de recommander la propreté.
Non. La racine de toute science économique.
No. Above, the quote from Malthus. Plutôt que de recommander la propreté.
Non. Oh oui.
Oui.
La solution. Oui. Attends. Not to translate exactly, but that populations depend on the amount of food they have. So your population growth is dependent on the living conditions of people. So Thomas Malthus, who was a British reverend, believe it or not, proposed that one keep the population. Pardon?
So-called reverend.
So-called reverend, yes. That population control was done by keeping people living in what has become now termed as Malthusian conditions, which is what we see in Africa. So yes, extremely unpleasant way of looking at humanity.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
not just in Africa, I'd like to mention, but also in Haiti.
Yeah.
Situations in Haiti that were caused by all sorts of foundations working there. I'm sure people are aware of who some of those foundations are. Also in South America, you've had, just recently in Argentina with President Macri, there are enormous neoliberal economic policies put into place of privatization. A lot of people around the world will think that these things just happen randomly, or they just happen because they have to, because of austerity, or because of some made up clever sounding word that the oligarch throws at us and throws everyone into confusion. Like, but why do they have to take our pensions to pay off this debt that we never asked for? So and actually what's really promising today, I just want to mention, is that you see a rejection of this neoliberal financial institution, this kind of architecture which is seemingly over the past 15 years managed to control the rate of development on each and every continent, including Europe. Europeans should not think for 1 second that they are not affected by this. We have definitely been held back in our potential. Let's just put it simply like that. So, Sebastien, I'll let you, go into that question.
Disons que Adam Smith et Malthus sont le problème et Hamilton, c'est la solution. So Adam Smith and Malthus are the problem and Hamilton is the solution. Donc c'est ça qui est l'état d'esprit de mon livre. C'est-à-dire c'est ne pas combattre l'oligarchie par ce qu'elle fait de mauvais, mais combattre l'oligarchie par ce qu'on peut faire de bien. What I was saying is that we have to fight the oligarchy, Adam Smith and Malthus, not because they are doing bad things. And it is all the state of mind, the spirit of my book, but by teaching to others how we can build something to crush this oligarchy. And c'est pour ça que c'est très important que Alexander Hamilton soit étudié en Afrique, mais pas simplement en Afrique, en Amérique latine, à Haïti, en France, partout, parce qu'il a écrit 3 rapports. Un rapport sur la Banque nationale, qui est la question de la souveraineté monétaire, un rapport sur les manufactures, les industries, et un rapport sur le crédit public. So Hamilton proposed a solution by writing 3 reports, 1 report on manufacturing, 1 report on public credit, and 1 report on national banking system. And that's the key for Africa today, and it is what Cédric Mbang-Mesui have discovered, during his reading of Hamilton. Et c'est ce que Cédric Mbang-Mesui a découvert justement quand il lisait Hamilton. Il faut savoir que le rapport sur les manufactures a été traduit pour la première fois en français il y a 2 ou 3 ans, c'est tout. Ça n'existait pas en français. Hein. C'est pour vous dire qu'il y a encore du travail. I was saying that some reports of Hamilton have been only translated in French only 2 or 3 years ago by Solidarité et progrès, our political movement. Anyway, so, donc pour revenir à cette question, c'est que aujourd'hui, on a mis dans la tête des gens, et particulièrement en Afrique, la question de la surpopulation, que nous sommes trop nombreux sur la planète. We have put in mind of the population in Europe and in Africa that we are too many people on Earth, which is the Malthusian idea, hein, et qu'on doit contrôler la situation, la population. We have to control population. And Malthus was very polemical, saying that we have to let the disease spreading in the street for the poor, so they will die. That's it. And it will regulate the population. So Malthus, c'est la citation donc, qui est dans mon livre. Hein. Il le dit explicitement pour les Français. Oui. Plutôt que de recommander la propreté aux pauvres, nous devrions construire les rues plus étroites, loger plus de gens dans les maisons et aider au retour de la peste. Let the disease coming back. So, bon, Malthus était très clair sur ça. Et c'est intéressant. Voilà. Et donc, quand je suis allé au Mali, justement, tu en parlais au début, on a parlé économie avec 2-3 jeunes qui prennent des cours d'économie et ils connaissaient très bien Malthus, mais ils ne connaissaient pas Hamilton. C'était quand même extraordinaire. So I was saying that when I was in Mali, I was discussing with some students in economy and they know the theory of Malthus very well, but nothing about Hamilton. So, et c'est très drôle parce que c'est très facile à réfuter. Vous savez, moi, depuis que je suis tout petit, à la télé, à chaque fois qu'il y a des famines dans le monde, on m'explique qu'il y a trop de gens sur Terre. Et à chaque fois, on montre des Africains à la télé, des Noirs. Voilà, c'est les Noirs, ils sont trop nombreux. Bon. Alors du coup, j'ai fait quelques recherches, j'en parle vite fait dans le livre, où je montre que, par exemple, un pays comme le Gabon est aussi grand que l'Angleterre, mais il y a 2 millions d'individus dedans. C'est-à-dire, il y a 20 fois moins de gens. La République démocratique du Congo, c'est 3 fois plus grand que la France. Pourtant, il n'y a que autant d'habitants. Le Tchad, c'est 3 fois plus grand que la France. Il n'y a que 10 millions d'habitants, etc., etc. So I was saying that this question, because when I was young, you know, every time you have famine in the world, you know, they were saying always the same bullshit, sorry for that, that we are too many on Earth, and particularly in Africa, there are too many. But if we look at the reality of numbers, I mean, for this specific case, I was just mentioning 3 examples, as Gabon, for example, which is only 2 or 3 million of people, which is as big as Great Britain. Chad, which is 3 times as big as France, but only 10 million of individuals. France is 70 million. And the Republic Democratic of Congo, DRC, is 4 times as big as France, but have the same number of people. So what we call the demographic density is very low in Africa. But at each time we are saying that we are too many on Earth, we are showing Africans. So we can cut this by giving this number and then we can go to the next topic. Donc, c'est un peu l'exemple que j'utilisais.
Oui. Sébastien, une question s'il vous plaît. Votre livre et aussi le livre Libérer le potentiel de l'Afrique, c'est traduire en anglais bientôt? Je ne sais pas.
I don't know. Je ne sais pas. J'espère.
Nous espérons bientôt.
J'ai des amis qui ont commencé à le traduire en anglais, mais ils ont beaucoup de travail et je ne sais pas si ça avance.
D'accord.
I was saying that I have some friends in the US who have translated already the 2 or 3 first chapter, but I don't know exactly because they are very busy, so they cannot do it as.
I'm sure it will get done.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, just to bring you back to what you were saying, Sebastien. I don't know if you can recapture it in English for us quickly. Is there any chance that we can get a translation from you?
For
what you were saying about Thomas Malthus and that this the ideas of Malthus seem to be more popular than Hamilton, and that there seems to be a big problem with a philosophy of pessimism across the continent, and it's largely drawn about from this misplaced education, or maybe unbalanced education, because it's clear to anyone when you're given the choice between optimism or pessimism in the form of philosophy, most people will probably choose something that's rather lighter and on the soul. So just if you could give us a summary of what you were saying before on that subject.
All right. So in English, you mean, so yes, what we did, it was in 2009 in Copenhagen, for the famous climate summit. We have a big banner saying that the problem is not overpopulation, is underdevelopment. That's the main problem. So what I was saying about this Malthusian ideology, which is in all the mind, for example, the last three presidents of France, François Hollande, Nicolas Sarkozy, and Emmanuel Macron, have all the three said publicly in the main channel of France that there are too many people on Earth, and particularly in Africa. They said it explicitly, even if what I said that the demographic density in Africa is much less important than in Europe or in Japan or even in China. So this idea is very, very popular, because when you are underdeveloped, of course, you don't have enough food for everybody. So you can say that we are too many, but the problem is that is not that you are too many, is that there are not enough food. Right. That's the problem of underdevelopment. Okay?
Exactement. Alors, c'est nécessaire de choisir votre problème.
That's it.
C'est les humains ou c'est les problèmes des humains? Parce que we all know that, food can be produced nowadays in all sorts of atmospheres and environments. So we even have such technological advances in farming, where you have sky farming, where food is grown up in the sky, quite literally. We have that being put into practice in China and Singapore and such places. Why can it not be done on the African continent? I mean, yeah. Why do we?
And if you take the case of Mali, Mali, there was a big program, during the 60s, launched by the first president, Modibo Keïta, to make of Mali, capacity for irrigation and so on and so forth. So they can produce food not only to be self-sufficient, but they can also produce food for their neighbors. So, but everything had been destroyed, And the last example was what have done Gaddafi, because before he was killed by Sarkozy and the imperialists, Gaddafi launched a program in Mali called Malibia to recreate this breadbasket with irrigation, modernization of agriculture. You don't need, we can use new technology, but even with traditional agricultural irrigation system and a little bit of modernization, you can feed easily all the region. No problem for that.
I mean, we've heard multiple institutions talk about Sudan becoming the breadbasket of the world. Yeah. Of the world. So, there should be no excuse as to why we consider that there's too many people. I mean, Africa has 1.4 billion people, and so does China. And you can fit China into Africa, give or take, around 3 times. So,
c'est ce que dit Cédric Mbang-Mesui, c'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui, vous avez des pays, l'Afrique importe 400 milliards de produits alimentaires par an. C'est-à-dire que si on investissait 400 milliards dans l'agriculture par an, on ferait des miracles. So what I was saying that Cédric Mbang-Mesui used a very strong argument, saying that Africa is importing $400 billion of foods every year. So imagine if you can use these 400 billions to modernize and the agricultural system with irrigation and technology, so you can. Yes, you have no problem to feed people, no problem at all.
Yeah, I mean, also, I've done some research in the past and seen that a major problem on the continent is inter-trade.
Yeah.
So even that food is not even coming from the continent, which is even crazier still. It's coming from other continents. At least if they were paying each other, the continental economy would grow. But all the time, because, you know, when the British were there, we made sure that every train line or every transport artery that was built was of a different construct, so that they would never be able to connect to one another. So for example, the train lines in Kenya were built to a different width to the train lines in Congo and so forth. And this was again a direct Malthusian Smithian policy of making sure that the continent would never be able to have the potential to develop itself without outside intervention. Now, of course, there's only so much the oligarchy can hold back the rate of progress.
Yeah.
And so that's why these ideas are essential, exactly as P.D. Lawton shows on the back of her screen on her wall.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful map of Africa with the African Union railway plan for 2063 in you see the black lines there.
Yeah.
I'd encourage everybody watching this interview to go and check that out. It's extremely optimistic plan for the continent, and you could start to imagine all of the potential ways that both the local people and visitors to the continent will use that transport network. And yeah, it's extremely brilliant.
Sorry, Nick.
Go for it.
But of course, les chemins de fer, the railways, need to be constructed, and in order to construct the railways, you need materials, you need steel, so you need energy and power. So we come back to the question for you, Sébastien, le pouvoir pour le développement, the power to develop. So in what capacity, Africa's capacity to change very quickly, it all boils down to the necessity for power, how to have the energy to do all of this. So how, I mean, is that one of our questions, Nick?
Oui, bien sûr.
To ask about the energy.
Oui. En français, quels sont les développements qui doivent avoir lieu dans un avenir immédiat pour que l'Afrique commence à réaliser son potentiel énergétique? À vous, Sébastien.
You don't ask the question in English before?
Well, yes, I will. For the English audience, yes. What are the developments that need to take place in the immediate future for Africa to begin realizing her energy potential, which is huge?
It's huge, yes, c'est énorme. Alors, c'est une question très sensible que j'essaie d'aborder justement dans un des chapitres de mon livre, parce que en fait, on sait que, comme vous dites, c'est un projet énorme et qu'il faut des flux de densité énergétique qui soient puissantes. Donc, ça veut dire qu'il faut l'énergie nucléaire. Et donc, je consacre un chapitre à l'énergie nucléaire dans mon livre. Alors, comme je le dis dans l'introduction, quand on parle de l'espace, en général, déjà, les gens disent « oui, mais à quoi ça sert d'aller dans l'espace? On a tellement de problèmes sur Terre. » Alors, quand on associe les programmes spatials à l'Afrique, alors là, les gens ne comprennent pas du tout. Et encore moins quand on associe la question du nucléaire et de l'Afrique. So, what I was saying for the English is that it's a touchy subject that I try to touch a little bit in my book about this question of nuclear energy for Africa, because it's a very, very difficult question, because we know that the situation there is very complicated. And also the people are not ready to understand, because when we are associated, space policy, when we are discussing even space policy, people say, why spending money on space policy? We have so many problems on Earth, So if you associated space policy and Africa, nobody understands. And that's the problem. So imagine with nuclear energy. Donc l'énergie nucléaire, en fait, c'est ce que j'explique, c'est que déjà, il y a...
Sorry, Sebastian, just to say, I mean, we all know that the oligarch has done such a fine job of propagandizing the subject of nuclear energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with all the media.
Et donc, ce que je montre dans mon livre, c'est que, et c'est quand même choquant pour beaucoup de personnes, c'est que l'Afrique est déjà dans l'ère du nucléaire. pas encore physiquement, mais déjà dans les principes. Déjà, on sait que l'Afrique du Sud, qui est un pays qui possède des centrales nucléaires, a relancé dernièrement un contrat pour construire 9500 mégawatts d'électricité. Ils ont fait un appel d'offres. Et donc, les Russes, les Chinois, même les Français et les Américains sont sur le coup. Donc, ça, c'est quelque chose de très concret et demandé officiellement par un gouvernement africain qui est l'Afrique du Sud. Donc, ça, c'est le premier point. Donc, I translated in English. So I was saying that this question of nuclear energy is very touchy in Africa, but most of the people don't know that some countries in Africa have already nuclear power plants, as South Africa, and more. They have just launched a project to have 9,500 megawatts more nuclear energy in 10 years, and they have launched an appel, a contract that already Chinese, Russian, French, and American are looking at it to build what we call small modular reactor, which is a small power plant. So that's a reality. But le deuxième point, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, vous avez 9 pays en Afrique qui ont signé des partenariats avec l'Agence internationale pour l'énergie atomique, donc qui est l'agence officielle et institutionnelle qui gère justement les programmes de nucléaire civil à l'échelle mondiale. Donc, et vous avez 9 pays, je les cite, hein, je ne vais pas citer tous maintenant, il y a le Nigeria, il y a le Ghana, il y a le Kenya, il y a l'Égypte, il y a la Tanzanie, enfin il y a plusieurs pays.
Oui.
Pardon?
Zambia.
La Zambie, bien sûr. Zambie. Voilà. Donc, vous avez déjà des choses qui sont en cours. So, in English, I was saying that most of people don't know that we have what we call the International Agency for Atomic Energy, IEIE, which is already working with more than 8 or 9 countries now for a program of civil nuclear, I mean not military, not for military purpose, but for civil and electricity. So you have already 9 countries in Africa working with this international agency, which is an official one, to develop program to have their first nuclear power plants in the next 10 years. So, and Egypt is the more advanced on that. Yeah. Donc en français, bon, je ne répète pas ce que j'ai dit, mais bon, je vais prendre un exemple très concret. C'est l'Égypte, puisque l'Égypte a signé un contrat sous le cadre de l'AIEA, avec Rosatom, l'agence atomique russe, pour construire la première centrale nucléaire d'Égypte, à El Daba, et donc qui est déjà en cours de construction. Les élèves, les étudiants sont déjà allés faire des formations en Russie chez Rosatom, et ils sont en train de construire une école qui est déjà en cours avec des étudiants qui ont été recrutés. Il y en a déjà plus de 80 qui sont formés à participer à la construction de la centrale nucléaire et qui vont être formés avec les ingénieurs russes pour qu'il y ait également un transfert de connaissances et de technologies. So what I was saying is that you have a concrete project. I will not go in detail on the other project, but if you take the case of El Daba nuclear power plant, El Daba is a city in Egypt, in the Mediterranean Sea, and already the contract has been signed with Rosatom, which is the Russian nuclear society, the one of the state. And not only they have already started the project, but they have also a lot of young and engineers who have been trained in Russia in the Department of Study of Rosatom. And they also opened a school, and they recruited, I think, something like 80 or 100 students which have been trained by international teachers on nuclear science. And at the beginning, when they opened the school, you have more than 1,000 young people who wanted to go in this school because they say, we will develop our country. We are very enthusiastic to know this technology, but they have only accepted 100 anyway. But I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm about it in the youth. So probably it will be what we say the surprise in the next 8 or 10 years that you will have a nuclear power plant in Egypt. And it will be as the train, you know, the railway in Nairobi, Mombasa, or Addis Ababa, Djibouti, will create a shock in the mind of the population that say, okay, we can have the best technology, we can master it, we can have it for our own development. And it will be a very, very important for the future of the, as the question was asking, the energy needed for the real industrialization of Africa and to develop all the railroads we can see on that behind Philippa, with all the railway connecting all the capitals of the continent. Donc, je disais que c'est très intéressant puisque il y avait plus d'une 1000 étudiants qui voulaient s'inscrire dans l'école scientifique pour apprendre les technologies nucléaires. Ils ont dû en accepter qu'une centaine. Mais je pense que ça va être une grande surprise puisque peut-être que dans 8 ans, dans 10 ans, on va avoir la première centrale nucléaire en Égypte. Ce sera un choc un petit peu comme ça s'est fait avec le train entre Nairobi et Mombasa, ou le train entre Addis Abeba et Djibouti, où les images ont fait le tour de l'Afrique. Moi, on m'a invité en Côte d'Ivoire pour présenter ce projet-là, appliqué à la Côte d'Ivoire, en faisant imaginer aux 500 étudiants qui étaient devant moi un train qui parcourait leur pays, parce que les trains ont disparu là-bas, ils ne marchent plus, hein, les trains coloniaux. Et donc, voilà, leur faire imaginer ce train et leur donner envie, justement, de bâtir le développement du continent.
It will be so funny, you know, in 10 years' time when you have Westerners who like to think of going to Africa on safari to see the elephants and the giraffe, and they think they're going to go on some lovely little old steam train or some relic from colonial times. And meanwhile, there's I think it's called Al Borak that in Morocco that there's 320 kilometers an hour. And then the electric trains in Djibouti and now in Tanzania on the Tanzanian railway that's coming through to DRC. So it's all changing and incredibly quickly.
Yep.
So, you know, people will go to Africa, Westerners will go to Africa, and they will be faced with railway stations and locomotives which far surpass certainly anything we have here in Britain.
Yes,
because it's more modern and, you know, faster, and the tracks are better. Everything will, you know, in time to come, unless certainly the UK changes, we will be like a museum. We will be like the colonial relic from the past, and we'll have all these wonderfully wealthy Africans. They won't have to come over on the Mediterranean in a dinghy and drown halfway, because they can just come to Heathrow and bring the family and tour around the Museum of Ancient Technology in Britain. Because
yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much hope for Britain being a museum by then, because I should expect that most of the African nations will have taken their artifacts back from the British Museum by then.
Yeah, no, it's meaning a cultural museum, because
I totally understand what you mean, but
gone to the dogs.
Your word to kind of shine an irony on that, because it leaves Britain, well, bottomless.
And you will have no money, because as I know, the British Museum is free. You don't have to pay for that.
Right. Unless you want to see Tutankhamen, then you have to pay a special exhibition fee normally or something.
Oh, do you? Oh, yeah.
I wanted to just draw attention to another project, Sebastien. I'm sure you know about the GERD, the hydroelectric dam in Ethiopia. If you could talk a little bit about that as well, because you know, you've spoken about nuclear being a massive potential for Africa in terms of energy, but also there are, you know, hydro dams, for example, have not been really developed to the maximum potential that they can be. And you have the longest river in the world in Africa. You also have the most powerful river by force in the Congo. The Congo River is the deepest and most powerful river by sheer volume. There are parts of the Congo River that are almost 2,000 meters deep.
Wow.
There are over 2,000 islands within the Congo River. So yes, there is a project also called the Grand Inga Dam, which has the potential to create at least 70 to 100 gigawatts of power. Sebastien, if you could talk a little bit about that for us.
Yes, yes. Je vais commencer en français.
Oui.
Je pense qu'on a parlé du nucléaire, mais en effet, le nucléaire, ça va se développer très lentement en Afrique. Ça va prendre vraiment beaucoup de temps, alors que l'énergie hydraulique, c'est aujourd'hui ce sur quoi il faut très, très vite, beaucoup plus faire de choses parce qu'on sait les faire, ça va beaucoup plus vite, etc. Et l'Éthiopie, malgré quelques difficultés politiques, a réussi à faire son barrage en un temps assez important, parce que c'est un grand barrage, et qui est la priorité. Il va se passer un petit peu comme il se passe en Chine. Vous savez, en Chine, 50% de l'énergie, c'est le charbon. Encore aujourd'hui. 5%, c'est le nucléaire. En Chine, encore aujourd'hui. Pourtant, la Chine est très développée, mais c'est que 5% du nucléaire. Et évidemment, énormément d'hydroélectriques sur l'ensemble de la Chine. Tout le monde connaît le barrage des Trois Gorges. So in English, I was saying that we were discussing nuclear energy for sure, but it will be a very development in a long period of time. But you are totally right, Nicolas, is that the first priority is to develop the GERD, like you say in Ethiopia, which is the hydroelectric power, because it's easy, we can do it fast, and it will be very useful directly. So I think this is the priority to develop Africa, at least for the energy. Why I'm touching this question of nuclear energy is to show a little bit behind. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was saying also is that if you take China, which was a very, very poor country 30 years ago, now they have 50% of their energy come from fossil, okay, coal and so on. Then you have only 5% which come from nuclear energy, and the rest is hydroelectric power. Everybody know about the three gorge dam. Voilà.
Yeah.
Voilà, donc en effet, c'est très important. Et nous, on a proposé avec l'Institut Schiller un grand nombre de projets qui sont plutôt focalisés justement sur les barrages hydroélectriques et l'aménagement justement du bassin du Congo vers la Centrafrique et le lac Tchad, le projet Transaqua, pour créer justement dans toute la région justement des barrages hydroélectriques qui traverseraient la Centrafrique. On sait qu'il y a beaucoup de projets sur le fleuve Congo qui existent, mais qui n'ont jamais été réalisés à cause évidemment des questions géopolitiques, mais qu'il y a un grand nombre de projets qui pourraient être réalisés. Donc, en effet, je pense que à long terme, le nucléaire est la meilleure solution, mais à court terme, c'est l'hydroélectrique qu'il faut développer très vite.
Et aussi, nous avons une question de le Lake Tchad. Tu peux dire quelque chose de ça, parce qu'il y a une commission de Lake Tchad Basin de développer un grand quai de le rivière Congo jusqu'au Lake Tchad. Vous pouvez parler un peu de ça aussi, Sébastien, pour nous?
Oui, le Transaqua.
Oui, le projet Transaqua.
Exactement.
Ah, c'est très compliqué, le projet Transaqua.
Alors, pardon, juste, j'ai ici un
ça,
picture.
c'est le barrage d'Inga.
Exactly.
No, it is the Inga Dam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this will, the Grand Inga Dam is going to be in some way connected to the Lake Chad Basin canal, because it's the... Oh, well, they're not directly connected, are they? I mean,
You are right, because we have to see the Inga Dam project in connection with the Transaqua project. We have to see everything in one conception, but is not directly related.
Right, yes.
But it's important to have the big picture, because some of the people who say that we want to take water from the east of Congo to go to Central Africa, and then to revitalize the Chad Lake. So we will use water from the Congo River, and we will not have water for the Inga Dam project. So you have a book, 300 pages book written about this, saying that if we steal the water from the east, we will not have any more water on the west. So okay, so you have a lot of propaganda around this.
Yes.
The scarcity, that scarcity goes back to Malthusian thinking, that
Voilà,
you don't have enough.
Ce que je disais en français, oui, en français, je répète, je disais en effet, il y a le grand barrage d'Inga et il y a aussi le projet Transaqua qui est un peu différent puisque c'est l'idée de prendre l'eau à l'est du Congo, dans la partie est du Congo, et d'en prendre une partie pour la faire dériver vers la République centrafricaine pour rejoindre le fleuve qui alimente le lac Tchad qui est en train de disparaître. Et donc, certains, il y a même un livre de 300 pages qui a été écrit là-dessus, disant que si on prend l'eau à l'est du Congo, on n'aura plus d'eau pour le grand barrage d'Inga, ce qui est totalement de la propagande et qui n'est basée sur aucune réalité scientifique. Mais certains essayent de rendre confus la chose. C'est ce que je disais à propos du Transaqua. Mais si on revient sur le projet Transaqua, en tant que tel, c'est un projet qui est assez passionnant et qui a une histoire, puisque, bon, je ne sais pas si les auditeurs sont au courant, mais le lac Tchad était un grand lac qui a réduit jusqu'à 90%, c'est-à-dire qu'il est en train de disparaître. Il y a quand même 30 millions de personnes qui sont en train de mourir de faim dans la région, et il y a déjà plus de 6 millions de déplacés. Philippa mentionnait les gens qui fuient vers la Méditerranée. Voilà, là on le voit à l'image. Donc les gens qui fuient la Méditerranée, qui fuient la région pour aller dans la Méditerranée. Donc what I was saying in English is that the Transaqua project is very important because it's the idea to take some water from the east of Congo and bring water to the Lake Chad, which is disappearing. You lost 80% of this superficie, and you have 30 million people who live in the region and who are dying now of malnutrition because there is no more fishing, no more food, no more agriculture. It's a very complicated situation. Second point, you have 5,000 displaced people of the region. 5 million, people displaced because of the shrinking. And third, you have terrorism now because as misery, poverty is all over the place. People are going, in this kind of so-called jihadist groups to try to survive. So it's a very, very, very important issue, the Transaqua. It's not just an infrastructural project, it's a project for peace.
Oui,
c'est très important.
Le militant dans l'ouest de ADC, c'est le problème à tout le Sahel. Transaqua est la solution.
You're right.
Oui.
Yes, because it will create jobs for thousands of people.
Oui.
That's it.
C'est une solution totale économique pour la région et pour l'Afrique en général parce que I say sometimes like we need the transport arteries to transport ideas and we need the energy to power those ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People cannot have the time to sit around and have discussions like we're having right now unless they have some sort of economic stability to their lives.
It go back to what you were saying about inter-trade between the different countries, as there is no canals, there is no railway, there is no roads. There is no road for trades and so on and so forth.
En fait, j'ai juste fait un petit recherche de moi, juste privatement, de la situation en CAR, Central African Republic. Et j'ai trouvé que pour 1000 km², il y a juste 4 km de rues.
Oui.
So for the English speakers, for 1,000 square kilometers of space in the CAR, which is considered one of the poorest countries in the world, there are just 4 kilometers of road. Et de ces 4 kilomètres de rue, juste 1 kilomètre est bitumen.
Bitumen.
Paved, comme on dit en français.
Oui, bitumé, c'est bien. Ouais.
So there's just 1 kilometer out of that 4 kilometers of road per 1,000 square kilometers, which is actually considered paved road for So that paints a very tragic image of, and CAR is about the similar size to France. And again, comme vous avez juste dit avant, Sébastien, il y a juste
4 000. 5 000.
4 000. 5 000.
Oui, 5 000.
Millions.
Population là.
Millions.
Et c'est une région complètement pleine de terrain.
Vide de personnes et vide de développement.
So there's tons,
et avec beaucoup plus de richesse que la France.
Ouais.
Oui, exactement.
Mais extraordinaire. Recently, en ADC, des personnes ont trouvé une montagne pleine d'or, a mountain of gold, quite literally, possibly thousands of kilograms of gold on South Kivu. Now, the irony of people finding armfuls of gold is that they don't even have a road to get on the road and sell the gold to a broker.
Right. Yeah.
Without running into militants, rebels who will kill them for the gold.
Yeah.
So it's time for change in Africa.
Yeah, you need physical independence and economic independence and philosophical independence.
That's why the question is not to stop the war there, but to build the economy. That's the point. That's the spirit of my book.
Oui. C'est pas un problème de guerre.
Yeah.
C'est un problème de philosophie.
D'ailleurs, sachez, pour donner un petit peu d'espoir à ceux qui nous écoutent, c'est qu'on travaille actuellement, on a d'ailleurs dans mon livre, j'en parle, il y a tout un projet pour développer la région des Grands Lacs qui s'appelle Soulaya Amani, qui veut dire le visage de la paix. Et donc, c'est des amis à nous avec qui on travaille depuis longtemps et qui ont pu présenter ce projet donc en 2019 à la conférence des Nations Unies à New York, dans le cadre des accords d'Addis Abeba pour la sécurité de la région des Grands Lacs. Et donc, ce projet, avec le nouveau président, bon, moi, je ne prends pas position sur la politique, mais bon, disons qu'on a pu travailler avec différents ministères qui ont obtenu des fonds et qui commencent à réfléchir à lancer quelques projets d'infrastructure autour de ça dans la région. Bon, c'est un début, mais c'est quelque chose qui est quand même aujourd'hui officiel. Donc, what I was saying is that to give a little bit hope to the people who are listening to us, is that we have presented a project which is called Soulaya Amani, which means the face of peace in Swahili, which is the language there.
Yep.
And this project has been presented in 2019 at the United Nations Conference in New York with people from the Schiller Institute and the people from DRC. And now they have succeeded to work with some minister of the new government. And as I was saying, I'm not judging any government in Africa, but some people are interested of that because you have what we call the Addis Abeba security agreements for the Great Lake security, for the security in the Great Lake region. So they have money, and that they have money to finance infrastructural projects, not only peace maintaining, casque bleu, blah, 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 but real development. So they have found a little bit of money for this project that it will start. So it's a beginning of a good news for the region.
Really? Thank you for that information, Sébastien.
Yeah.
Alors, la prochaine question pour aujourd'hui. Alors, première en anglais. What about China and their role on the continent? Because this is a very big discussion, like worldwide today. It's a lot of mainstream Western media is talking up the whole propaganda of debt trap diplomacy. So we'd like to chat about that. What are the aspirations of the Belt and Road Initiative, and can it be a or the platform for Africa to leap forward into the future from? And also, what could this future look like with regards to the international community getting involved too? Because should it just be China, or you know, should the USA, you know, return to its roots, so to speak, and carry out its promise stated in that you know, great Declaration of Independence, and also fulfill Hamilton's promise of national development and so forth. Alors pour les Français, qu'en est-il de la Chine et de son rôle sur le continent? Quelles sont les aspirations de l'initiative Belt and Road et peut-elle être la plateforme pour que l'Afrique se lance dans le futur? À quoi pourrait ressembler cet avenir en ce qui concerne l'implication de la communauté internationale aussi?
Donc oui, non, c'est un sujet très dense, très large. Mais c'est vrai que l'initiative Une ceinture, une route, c'est-à-dire One Belt, One Road Initiative, donc qui a été lancée par la Chine, touche beaucoup plus les autres pays dans le monde que l'Afrique. Il faut savoir qu'en Europe, on a beaucoup de pays qui ont signé des partenariats avec la Chine dans le cadre de l'initiative Une ceinture, une route. Hein. Donc il y a déjà en Amérique latine également. Donc c'est un projet qui concerne tout le monde. Et avec certains pays africains. Donc ça, c'est la première chose. Moi, je suis partisan de l'idée hamiltonienne, comme on en discutait au début et que tu mentionnais, Nicolas, que l'Afrique doit récupérer sa souveraineté, lancer des projets et à ce moment-là, choisir ses partenaires. Ça peut être la Chine, comme le Kenya l'a fait pour son train, ça a très bien marché, ou l'Éthiopie. Ça peut être la Russie, comme l'Égypte l'a fait pour le nucléaire. Ça peut être la France. Il faut savoir que la France a signé un partenariat dans le domaine du spatial avec l'Éthiopie, par exemple, quand Macron était en Éthiopie il y a 2 ans maintenant. Donc voilà, mais c'est d'abord, ça va être la souveraineté des États africains, leurs projets avec lesquels ils vont travailler avec des partenaires. So what I was saying first for the One Belt, One Road initiative, or the New Silk Road, as we say now, about China, which has already a big impact, but most of the time not in Africa, but in Europe. There are a lot of countries in Europe working with the Chinese for railroad and so on and so forth. You have now more than 20 or 30 railway, you know, for freight, coming from China to Europe, even in France, in Duisburg, in Germany. So it's very, very big impact, and a little bit impact of in Africa. So what I was saying is that for me, the best conception to see the future of Africa is that they develop their own sovereignty, this idea of Hamiltonian conception, national bank, public credit, and infrastructure investment. So, and then Africa can choose it is an international partner, which is China, for example, as Kenya did for his railway. They did it with China, or Ethiopia. As I was saying, Egypt chose the Russian for their nuclear development. Even France, Macron was in Kenya and in Ethiopia, it was 2 years ago, and he signed a contract between the Space Agency of Ethiopia and the CNES, which is the National Center of Space in France, which is very famous. Wow. Centre National des Études Spatiales. And they signed an agreement to train in space industry, space technology, satellite construction between France and Ethiopia. Okay, so because Ethiopia has already an observatory on the Mont Antento, which is a very high 3,000 meters high, which is an observatory for the sky, which is one of the best places in the world to look at the sky. So they signed a contract with France. So that's a good way to see the future of Africa. Okay, but it's true that now China is not the first trade partner of most of the country in Africa. It's true.
Also in Europe, I mean.
Yes, exactly. So it's not a problem. And so we know all about the debt trap, donc le piège de la dette. Et en effet, dans les conceptions monétaristes actuelles, bon, 2 choses. Déjà, la dette africaine est possédée à plus de 50-60% par les institutions que le sont le FMI, la Banque mondiale, l'Union européenne, etc. Donc, we're saying that most of the African debt is owed to European Union, IMF, World Bank, and so on and so forth. So now the Chinese are starting to invest in Africa and we are crying, saying, oh, debt trap, it's horrible. Well, it's just funny, you know, if you look at the things in reality.
It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly that. So, donc, c'est un faux débat, en fait, malheureusement. Et après, c'est vrai que pourquoi les Africains, aujourd'hui, choisissent la Chine, de plus en plus, en tout cas, parce que la Chine construit des choses, physiquement. Des trains, des aéroports, des barrages. Là, ils viennent de faire un barrage au Mali. La France n'a jamais fait de barrage au Mali, c'est les Chinois qui l'ont fait. Donc, c'est amazing. Amazing.
Shocking.
Yes. So, donc, je disais, voilà, in English, so, yes, it's true that more and more African countries. Oh, wait a second. I don't know why my battery. Oh, sorry.
Not a problem. Take the time.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, while Sebastian was just taking a break, like,
yeah,
I wanted to keep on talking. I mean, you know, we have this discussion of China now, and for me, like, I feel like the distortion is coming from the fact that, well, of course, it looks like it's very easy to paint a picture of this debt trap diplomacy while the West generally is doing very little.
It's jealousy, isn't it?
It does seem to be a policy of jealousy, and green-eyed envy.
Green-eyed envy, because Africa is doing so much with China's help.
Right, but I call more attention to the fact that, you know, private companies in Europe are very much involved in the development of developing countries in general, not just Africa, but around the world. Siemens, for example, which is over 130-year-old company from Germany, I think it is the largest multinational company in Germany, is currently developing Egypt's gas power turbines.
Yeah, exactly.
They
have a big project there.
Yeah, they're building also the train.
The railways,
the railway in Egypt, and they're also working in Nigeria right now to upgrade the entire energy grid.
Yeah.
So Siemens is very much in development there, and also the SGR in Tanzania is being built by Yapi Meketsi, which is a Turkish company, and Motor Engil, which is a Portuguese company. So the mainstream media in the West has, I think, missed the bigger picture here. And actually, we do see European private companies seeing the bigger picture and very much interested to partner with Africa in win-win cooperation in these development ideas. So
I think the international media, or our media, the oligarchy, they want to create an image of a Cold War. So they want people to believe that it's either China or America, and somehow Africa is the territory on which this war is being fought, and that both entities are after their resources.
Right. So you can't work with both. You have to pick.
It's China.
It's us or them, sort of. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. A closed system.
Right, closed system.
All right.
Closed system.
C'est marrant parce que dans un chapitre, je consacre à l'espace. Je montre qu'un pays a lancé son satellite depuis le Japon avec l'aide du Japon, un avec la Chine, un avec la Russie, un avec la France à Guyane, et un autre avec OneWeb, qui est une compagnie britannique ou américaine, non, je crois américaine. Donc, on voit bien que l'Afrique, quand elle lance ses projets de développement à ce niveau-là, elle peut travailler avec toutes les compagnies russes, japonaises, chinoises, françaises, américaines. Il n'y a pas de problème, en fait, quand il s'agit d'économies win-win, comme tu disais, Nicolas.
Oui.
Oui, j'ai juste récemment entendu que la France, Macron a signé un contrat avec Kenya de développer le train de l'aéroport à le centre de Nairobi. C'est $280 000, cet contrat. Et oui, c'est très bien. Les gens kenyans sont très contents avec ce développement. Alors, c'est pas
Ce que
juste.
je dis, c'est que l'impact c'est le bon impact de la Chine. C'est l'impact de la Chine,
Oui.
quand elle a fait ses infrastructures, ça a fait se réveiller l'Occident, qui
Oui.
croyait que l'Afrique, c'était son jardin depuis, ça changerait jamais. Et l'impact de l'initiative Une ceinture, une route, quelque part c'est encore très lent, mais il y a eu un impact. Moi, je me rappelle quand Macron est arrivé en Éthiopie ou au Kenya, il s'est rendu compte qu'il y avait un train à grande vitesse, qu'il y avait les programmes spatiaux, ils avaient lancé des satellites. Il a dit, ouh là là, mais où est-ce qu'on est? Et donc, il a été signé des contrats avec ces pays-là. So what I was saying in English, that what is the most important in the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative is the impact, the geopolitical impact that has been on the continent, regard to the Western, the European, American, British, the way they see Africa as their, so-called paradise for say safari, have changed because when they go to Africa now, they see railway, speed railway, the big dam in Ethiopia, they see satellites launched by Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia, everybody is launching satellites. Angola was in Angola. They were launching their first satellite, 100% made in Angola. They built it entirely, the Angola. So the impact of the Belt and Road Initiative as a wake up, so it creates, we will not say a good competition, because it's still a lot of geopolitical and violence and Cold War mentality. But we have seen that more and more we have a change in the investment that we are doing in Africa, from the West.
Yeah, and also we're benefited by the options presented to us nowadays. I mean, for 50 years or so, it really was the West that dominated the world economically. But now, in the form of Japan, China, India, even, really arriving on the world stage with a big hand to play, they're very much involved in the development of developing countries generally. So I've seen, for example, Japan with its JICA organization, which is a international kind of financing vehicle that they use to develop, to give grants. There's a brand new road that I've driven down many times in Nairobi that was just literally built by the Japanese. Japanese companies worked on it, and they employed Kenyan workers. There are about 4,000 Kenyan workers that got a very good job developing a road that they can be proud of as well, with the cycle lanes and the pavements and the street lamps and the whole 9 yards, and it's very beautifully done. And maybe
if I can add something, for those who want to go against the propaganda of what China is doing in Africa, I present a conference. It was maybe 2 or 3. It was in 2017 when McKinsey, the company McKinsey, published a report which is called the Dance of the Lions and the Dragons, la danse des lions et des dragons, qui est un rapport qui a été fait par McKinsey, qu'on ne peut pas accuser de communisme. McKinsey is not a communist institution. Et il montre bien le vrai impact des investissements de la Chine en Afrique, avec une certaine modération, et pas the big propaganda of Reuters, BBC and others.
I remember actually watching a BBC interview with Kenyatta, who is the current president of Kenya, back in 2017, and they were talking about the SGR and how they were trying to put him in a corner about how it was putting Kenya into debt, and he was like, no. We already have more than enough debt with the IMF. Like, this is not our problem. This is new debt.
And it's going so far that ça va si loin que cette semaine, Ofcom, qui est l'agence de régulation des médias britanniques, a fait sauter la licence de CGTN.
Oui.
C'est-à-dire qu'il y a un gros combat, parce que l'influence des médias chinois ou des médias russes qui montrent un autre point de vue attire de plus en plus de gens. Et donc, ils sont en train d'essayer de censurer censorship de Chinese and the Russian media in the West. And what I was saying for the English, for the one who was speaking English, that British Authority of Media Licensing just cut the license of CGTN, which is a Chinese media, which is here from the beginning. So you have a big fight also with censorship of the information, in fact.
Yeah, that's true across the board. And yeah. So lastly, to get to our last question of today, I'd like to ask you for a message to send to a general message to send to the youth of Africa and the action they can take for their future. What would you advise for the largest demographic of young people in the world, which Africa currently has? It is the largest group of people below the age of 35 currently anywhere on the planet. So that should ring a bell in people's minds. There's an enormous amount of potential. We all know what young people are like and the excitement and opportunities that are built in universities world over. There's no reason why this cannot be done on developing countries too. Alors en français, enfin, je voudrais vous demander, Sébastien, un message pour les jeunes d'Afrique et les actions qu'ils peuvent entreprendre pour leur avenir. Que conseilleriez-vous au plus grand groupe démographique de jeunes au monde?
Alors, je leur dirais, et c'est le titre de mon livre, voyez l'Afrique avec les yeux du futur. Voilà, ça c'est le message. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai appelé mon livre comme ça. Parce que quand je suis allé en Côte d'Ivoire en 2019, j'ai eu la chance de présenter, j'ai fait une conférence justement sur les grands projets en Afrique devant 500 étudiants qui avaient entre 18 et 25 ans de l'Institut national polytechnique. So in English, I say, if there is one sentence, one word we can say to the young in Africa is see your country, see your continent with the eyes of the future, which is the title of my book. And that's why I choose this title, because when I was in Ivory Coast, it was in 2019, there I will make a new conference in June with these people inside the Institut National Polytechnique, Polytechnical School, in front of 500 students from 18 to 25 years old. And when I showed them a video of the train of between Nairobi and Mombasa, I was saying before, but I repeat it. Yeah. And I say, close your eyes. Imagine that this train is going from Abidjan to Yamoussoukro, to Niamey, to Ouagadougou, and imagine it. You are here to build that. And if you have that in mind, you don't care about the problem. You will have your own objective and you say, I will build my country. That's my priority. I will stop crying about the problem. Stop crying about the problem. Work hard on the project. We will create your industrial development of tomorrow. That's the main point of my book. That's the main work I'm doing when I'm going to Africa, is always showing the continent with the eyes of the future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for today, Sébastien. Merci beaucoup pour ce conversation. C'est très intéressant d'entendre. And yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Your experiences are second to none. You've actually been on the continent and worked with people both politically and with a lot of these ideas. And yeah, I really want to say, like, thank you for the great work that you're doing. Humanity really needs people like you to be doing what they're doing.
And you too.
Yeah, I mean, all of us, I suppose we can say so, but yes, thank you so much. And Madame Lawton, si vous pouvez présenter la livre encore aujourd'hui.
Monsieur Perimony, où achète-t-on votre livre?
Sur mon site, donc, qui est www.afriquedufutur.com. Voilà, ou sur Amazon, vous tapez voir l'Afrique avec les yeux du futur et normalement vous pouvez le trouver, tout simplement.
Merci. Et aussi, c'est possible d'adhérer à votre site Afrique du futur et to learn an extraordinary amount of Africa.
Oui, il y a beaucoup de conférences, il y a beaucoup d'articles, il y a pas mal de choses, tout à fait.
Oui. Merci, merci Sébastien.
I have your book on delivery already, so I am really excited to make my French better, one, and also to discover some of these new ideas as well. Thank you so much.
Great.